Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ariana Salgado. I work with Organized Communities Against Deportations here in Chicago, and I am currently the Deportation Defense Organizer. And before we get started with the agenda, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Gabi, who is one of our interpreters who's helping us out with language accessibility today, to be able to break some things down for us and some reminders. Um, Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Ariana Salgado. Trabajo con la organización Comunidades Organizadas en contra de las deportaciones en Chicago. Y muchas gracias por estar aquí en el evento. Y antes de comenzar con la agenda, voy a pasarle la palabra a Gaby, una de las personas que nos va a estar ayudando con interpretación para poder darnos una información que va a ser importante para el evento.
Hola a todos, gracias por estar con nosotros. Les recordamos que el día de hoy vamos a tener interpretación disponible en español usando la función de Zoom. En Zoom van a ver en la parte de su pantalla en el centro, ahorita van a aprender la interpretación y en esa interpretación van a ver un globo. Ya que puedan ver el globo en el fondo de su pantalla, escojan el idioma que ustedes prefieren y se prenderá la interpretación. Si están uniéndose a través de su teléfono celular o la aplicación móvil, solamente seleccionen los 3 puntitos que dice más o more, interpretación y su idioma. La interpretación todavía no está aprendida. Ahorita les avisamos cuando la aprendan. Hello, everybody. We want to welcome everyone for joining. And just to remind folks that we will have interpretation in Spanish and English available throughout today's event. We remind you all that in order to access this feature, you will see an interpretation globe button at the bottom of your screen if you're joining us through your computer. Or if you're joining us over your cell phone or a Zoom application, you will find it in the 3 dots or more button. Select interpretation and your language. So we are going to ask our tech support folks to go ahead and assign us, and you should see that button pop up. Le vamos a pedir a nuestros compañeros de tech, de apoyo tecnológico, que nos ayuden a aprender la interpretación. Si tienen alguna pregunta sobre la interpretación, solamente déjenosla saber en el chat. If you have any issues with interpretation, just let us know in the chat and we'll follow up.
Thank you so much, Gabi, for that rundown. And thank you so much to Gabi and Jacinta, who are going to be supporting us with interpretation today, and making sure that everyone is understanding what we're discussing. Welcome, everyone. I love seeing everyone's name and location. We have a lot of Illinois people, Cicero, Central Illinois. So welcome, everyone, once again. Just a quick reminder, the event is being recorded. So if you are not comfortable with your face being recorded and showing up, please make sure to turn off your camera. But yeah, so just a gentle reminder of that. And the first person that we're going to have speak to us today is Fernanda Castellanos. She is a staff member with us at OCAD, and she is also a member of Mi Gente and one of the individuals that has been helping us put this together, and we'll explain a little bit of the context of this event, and the importance of why we're doing it and where we're heading with this. So thank you, Fer, once again, and you can go ahead and start.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. My name is Fernanda, as Ariana mentioned. I use she, her pronouns, and just a little bit of context of what is this. Mi Gente has been organizing these through an accountability forums in collaboration with the We Are Home campaign to call for immediate action from the Biden administration to stop deportations and end detention. ISO 9 aims to put our community's experience with racist and abusive immigration enforcement back in the national spotlight to ensure that Biden administration immigration review its substantive, informed by impacted communities, and lays the groundwork for deep and tangible change. We have 6 policy demands. I'm going to name them. It's a stop all deportations, shut down all the detention centers, ending 287G program and the secure community programs, and the uses of ICE detainers. Close the hundreds of thousands of pending deportation cases in the immigration court's docket. Adopt persecutorial of discretion guidelines that provide relief from hypercriminalization, not more punishment, and allow people seeking asylum at the southern border to enter the country instead of detaining or turning them away. So that's what we have to share. This is what the forum it's about. And I'll pass it back to Ariana.
Thank you, Fed. And yeah, and we work with Mi Gente, and when Mi Gente started floating the idea for this, we thought that it was very important for us to join and to highlight the cases of our members here in Chicago who have been fighting their removal, right? And so today we're going to hear from two individuals, two members, right, that are going to be talking about their case. What can be done, the type of support that is needed, right? And how do we move forward, right? How do we make sure that when we're fighting case by case, we're also fighting for larger demands, right? That ensure that our people are out of cages and stay in the country with their loved ones. Just one quick reminder that I'm seeing here, panelists and attendees, when sending messages to selecting panelists and attendings when sending messages so that everyone can see them. So you have some options down on your right hand side as to who you can send messages to. So if you're wanting to make sure that everyone can see them, just select that. And yeah, before we go on with the folks that are going to be sharing their experiences and their fights, I want to introduce Commissioner Alma Anaya, who is joining us here tonight. Commissioner Anaya, I want to welcome you, and I want to invite you to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and why it was important for you to attend tonight.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ariana and Fernanda, and OCAD, of course, and Mi Gente for putting together such an informative forum where we can have real conversation of what we need to be demanding of the Biden administration, but also local governments. So some of you may know me, but my name is Alma Naya. I am a Cook County Commissioner here in Chicago. I am the only Latina on the Cook County Board. I am the youngest woman elected to this position, and I'm the first and only previously undocumented person to hold this position. And, I think for such a long time, I grew up just like many of you. My mother being undocumented, I had family members that worked and were harassed in the fields in California. I still have family who work there and oftentimes, fear ICE harassing them. I've had my father be separated by ICE, and a lot of the same things that we experience when the laws of this country have not worked for us and have overly criminalized our communities. So as a commissioner that happens to represent the biggest concentration of immigrants in the whole county, and also it's the most Latino, I find it extremely important to speak out, to join the forces of people on the ground and ensure that there are conversations happening and that we're bringing up a lot of these stories that you're about to hear about how our governments, how our different agencies are collaborating with ICE, and how we need to put a stop to it because it puts unfair burden in our communities. It separates a lot of the families, and it's harm that can really not be undone. We've seen raids and harassments and a lot of lack of resources throughout the years, and I think it's important for us to have this conversation. So I'll just take a second really quickly to just go over some of the things that we've seen here locally and some of the actions that we've taken to ensure, again, that there's not that type of collaboration and overly criminalization of our families. So, you know, I started this work, you know, almost 10 years ago, in 2011. And I came into working in Cook County right in the cusp of the passage of the Cook County ICE detainer ordinance. That was a change in the ordinance that amended the way that the Cook County Sheriff worked with ICE when there were detainer requests. Anybody in custody, it could have been, you know, driving without a license, which happens often, could have a detainer ordinance, and the sheriff would then hand them over to ICE, leading to deportations and additional separations, like I mentioned. You know, at the time, it was known also that there was you know, racial profiling happening. You know, most of the detainers that were happening were actually, you know, 15% American citizens. They were people who were born in the country, but of course, if you're brown or black in many places, you automatically become a target. So we know that just by simply implementing this law, individuals who you know, generated these ICE detainers as a population was 3 times more likely to just have parole because they were not in custody. So it was extremely important for us to pass that. Now, flash forward in 2018, when I ran for this position, it was, you know, we had been hearing a lot, actually, thanks to Mi Gente and a lot of other organizations that were really talking about this gang database that was that existed here in the city of Chicago and also in Cook County, that really just looked at people of color and criminalized them, put them on a list, did not give them an opportunity to clear their name. There was no proof that needed to be in place for a person to already be in this position where they're already labeled as a gang member, just for, again, living in a certain location or potentially having a relative that was previously incarcerated. So there was a lot of faults to that. And again, it led to deportations. So we started to see a pattern about what was happening when our agencies here in our local governments were not cautious about how they were handling our communities. So this became a bigger problem. And in 2019, again, with the help with a lot of organizations and external pressure, we were able to disseminate the database and create a lot of places for due process, and again, not to to ensure that there was no over criminalization. So we continue the work here. We were lucky to again think of another great idea, which was to provide public defenders to represent people in immigration court. So just 2 years ago, we started having a conversation with our public defender here in Cook County. We took a trip to San Francisco where we saw this was implemented, and we thought it was a good idea to bring it back. We successfully got an allocation of funding to start an immigration unit under our Cook County Public Defender's Office. And we're excited to expand that work. We're actually now in the state, in Springfield, to pass House Bill 2790, which is a House bill that would actually give full authorization for the public defender to actually represent people. Because we know that somebody that has an attorney and a public defender defending their case in immigration court will actually have a bigger chance to not obviously get deported or separated or even furtherly detained. So it's extremely important that we're working at every level of government and stopping this unfair cycle of just criminalizing immigrants and targeting immigrants. It's extremely important that we join together, that we demand of the Biden administration for them to really pay attention, right? To stop deportations, to reunite families that have been separated by being detained or by deportation, and to ensure that tactics that really target immigrants are no longer in place. So thank you, Mi Gente, for having this conversation, for uplifting the voices for the people that are going to be speaking, and ensuring that, again, that united, we're going to be putting up a real fight this time around. I think that, for over 20 years, we have been targeted, and it's time that again we hear our stories, and that we demand again every level of government, every agency, to stop criminalizing us and to stop separating our families. So again, thank you, and I look forward to this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Anaya, for being in this space with us and letting us know the work that you're doing on the ground to once again address a lot of these issues, right, that our communities face currently. Once again, before we jump into the stories, we want to remind folks, right, of why we're doing this. And we really appreciate Mi Gente, right, as a national organization who has been able to amplify a lot of the local fights here in Chicago, right, that that organized communities against deportations have been leading here, right, such as the fights against the gang database, both at the county level and at the city level, right. We did get a win at the county level, which is great, right, with the help of, once again, Mi Gente, other organizations, BYP 100, Commissioner Anaya, other folks who were involved. So we really have to celebrate that, right, and acknowledge that we're a strong team, right, that definitely amplifies these needs, right, and these campaigns. And really, we want to once again make sure that folks, know that we completely align with the asks that Mi Gente has put out and that Fernanda shared at the beginning, right? Because they directly impact the cases that we work with, our membership, right? First of all, we know that under the Trump administration, we went through hell and back, essentially, right? And that there's a lot of things that we need to start addressing, and that the Biden administration is very much responsible for addressing, right? One of the first things that we want to make sure that he does is make sure that there is states of removal that are granted, once again, for our folks, right, that essentially disappear under the Trump administration, and want to make sure that the detention facilities that cage our people is something that we also are able to address, and that you'll hear from both Beto and Arnold the importance of this. So without me talking a lot more, I'm gonna go ahead and start with Beto. Beto, unfortunately, was not able to join us live, but we were able to record his story. And so I'm gonna go ahead and play that for folks so you can get to know Beto a little bit more.
Good morning, everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about me and my story. I was born in Mexico, in the state of Jalisco. Just a happy child born in the city that truly enjoyed the country life. I had everything to be the happiest kid in life. A big loving family, lots of health, and never went through a day without food on the table. I was so happy that it never crossed my mind the thought of living somewhere else in the world. But unfortunately, our circumstances changed, and my family and I had to move to the United States. I arrived in Chicago, Illinois, when I was just 9 years old, and no matter how big this change was, it never changed the deep connection I had with nature. I'm 25 years old now, and I still enjoy the outdoors just as much as when I was a kid. But my life has not been the same ever since my friends and I decided to go on a trip to Colorado to go hiking for my 24th birthday. On our way back to Chicago, we were stopped by police in the middle of the night, where they racially profiled us. It was 4 Latinos men riding in a new car, so that made us suspicious. And that simple traffic stop eventually led to my deportation. I was directly transferred to immigration, and there I was, sit in detention for 9 months fighting my case. I decided to fight my case and made my case public because I knew deep inside me that this was unjust. This incident made me realize how close the police and ICE work together. While in detention, I did everything I could to try to stop my deportation. Although the big fight was happening outside the detention center, which was organized by my family, friends, community, and organizations such as OCAD. As we know from personal experience, ICE retaliates against people that stand up and organize, and I was one of them. While I was detained at Marshalltown County, I was outspoken about the poor conditions happening there, and I wrote a letter to the DHS supervisor of that facility, which was signed by more than 50 inmates. Shortly after that, I was put in solitary confinement for 4 days, and my supporters in the outside organized a day of call to action. I remember that day where hundreds of calls were made to the detention center demanding my release, that it made the staff really mad. They were telling me that I should tell my people to stop calling me. I also remember in one of my immigration courts where the judge canceled my court hours before and gave me a written order of deportation since he noticed the courtrooms were always full of supporters in my favor. Eventually, we filed a federal lawsuit against DHS given that ICE had refused to release me despite the fact that I am DACA eligible. And with all the persistent hard work and dedications, we were able to get my release from detention in February 2020. Shortly after that, we filed my DACA renewal application with USCIS. After 9 months of struggle, I was able to get back with my family and community in Chicago for 3 months. But I didn't want to accept the loss, and I was scheduled for a check-in in Iowa in the middle of the pandemic. In addition to that, a day before the check-in, I received a letter from USCIS saying that they were intending to deny my DACA based on my past traffic violations. On the day of the check-in, I was quickly put under arrest and deported in less than 36 hours. We knew that my expedited deportation was a form of retaliation, and both agencies easily washed their hands, displacing me from this country. This is why it's very important for this new administration to take urgent actions and to repair all the damage caused by these agencies like ICE and return all the people who have been removed from the country we call home and let us reunite with our families. It is extremely important to stop funding those harmful agencies until they're abolished, in addition to stopping all deportation and shutting down all detention centers. There are no specific calls to actions at the moment, but I would like to invite all the people to follow OCAD's page and stay tuned for the upcoming events and actions as we continue in the fight to come back to the place we all call home. Thank you all.
Okay, I got it.
Okay. We want to thank Beto and send them all kinds of love and good wishes. As you heard from Beto, and if you have been following our work with him, you know that he was removed from the country and he's currently in Mexico, right? But that once again does not mean that the fight is over or that we forget about Beto, right? And that we don't stop trying to make sure that he comes back, especially because this is once again a very clear form of accountability that this current administration can take, right, to ensure that Beto um, reserve the serve returns to the country right after being removed and suffered retaliation in the previous with the previous administration. So we are gonna go next to Arnold Castillo. And we're going to ask of Arnold, who was able to join us, right, to share your name, who you are, where you currently are living, why you're living there, and your experience with the criminal system and the immigration system, right, and how that resulted in you ending up where you currently find yourselves. So once again, thank you, Arnold, so much for being with us and sharing your experience with us tonight.
Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? All right. Hello, everybody. I hope everybody finds themselves well in a great spot, great space. As Ariana said, my name is Arnold Castillo. I am currently in Colombia. That is not Columbia, Ohio. That is Colombia, South America. Um, I'm an activist. I'm a human rights fighter. Um, I like to say that I'm the voice of the voiceless. Um, I just recently got done doing 17 years in prison for a crime that I did not commit, right? But I'm not here to retry uh, that aspect of my life. Um, the truth of the matter is that after doing all these years in prison, um, immigration became a new crime, right? And so my immigration story is I don't think it's new unto itself, um, but nevertheless, I haven't heard too many stories like mine. And so I came to the United States when I was 3 months old, right? So I lived in the United States literally my whole life, 36 years. And then I'm told I have to go back to my country. Now, mind you, um, a state government system, um, a department of the Department of Illinois Department of Children and Family Services decided that my house was not um, safe enough for me, and so I was taken from my family and placed into systems that basically helped me become institutionalized and basically prepped me for prison, right? Um, and so while I'm in their custody, they find out that, oh my God, this child is not American. But how do we keep this child in our custody legally? Um, and so they decided to petition their sister government, which is the federal government, for me to get papers, right? So I got a visa for a year, and then I ended up getting my legal permanent resident status. Now, mind you, at this time, I'm roughly 9, 10 years old. I don't know what's going on. I've been going to so many courtrooms that have to do with family matters that another courtroom is just another courtroom. A judge asked me, do you like America? Do you like it here? Do you want to stay here? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, you can stay here. Um, 36 years later, you can't stay here. You got to go back. Um, um, but the problem is that the system, the legality of the system is that the state of Illinois was my guardian. They had been my guardians for years. And as my guardians, they had petitioned for me to get status. However, the system failed me when they failed to execute my citizenship. So I was within the legal bounds of citizenship after 5 years of having a green card. I didn't know this then. Obviously, I know this now, but it's maybe a little bit too late. I doubt it. I think that there's a fight to be fought, and I have beautiful people in my circle that are fighting the good fight. But anyway, so the state of Illinois, if for my citizenship, I couldn't do it. I, as a juvenile, could not fill out the paperwork. I could not ask to be a citizen. That was within the purview of my guardians, which was the state of Illinois. And they failed me. And so now, 36 years later, I'm dropped off in a country that I've never known, the clothes on my back and nothing else. And I'm told to survive, right? So that's the equivalent of grabbing an American at the age of 36, dropping him off at in the Amazon and telling him to go survive. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. But anyway, so I find myself um, in a foreign country that I've never known because government systems failed the system, right? But by extension, they failed me. Um, and I mean, I was I ended up doing about 4 months in immigration custody, um, fighting a fight that was a lost cause, right? Because unfortunately, the United States Congress, throughout the years of immigration reform, has taken the power away from immigration judges and has given them to ICE and DHS. So judges no longer have that awesome power and discretion to handle immigration cases. Now that awesome power lies with the very same people that want to kick you out of the country, right? And so now we have a system of imbalance. So I remember going to a bond hearing, and the judge told me, even if I wanted to give you a bond, so here it is, of all his power in immigration systems, in immigration, there has to be some type of balance there, but there isn't, right? Congress made it so. How do we strike a balance by giving judges that awesome power that they deserve, that they command, right? The authority and the discretion to decide on a case by case basis um, a person's immigration status, right? So, um, carceral life, right? Immigration life, as the United States government defines it, it's non-punitive, um, and it's non-criminal. Yet every aspect of detention screams criminal and punitive in nature. So you don't wake up when they wake you up, when you're supposed to get up, right? So I'm a free human being, but yet every aspect of my existence is still controlled by systems that were designed for quote unquote criminal matters. Um, I find myself in the hole, in the shoe, in solitary confinement because I didn't wake up, or because I didn't eat fast enough, or because I gave somebody that was hungry a noodle who was less fortunate, right? This is all punitive in nature, right? So by the very existence of incarceration or detention, as it is dubbed, um, 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 is punitive. It's punitive. You cannot the economic impact that these county jails and facilities have on people's families and loved ones is is astronomical. A ramen noodle, one ramen noodle costs $1.11. One 20-minute phone call costs $5 to $6. But this is all by design. So like DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, knows very well who they contract with, the county jails that they contract with. The healthcare is atrocious. The mental health system is non-existent. I seen people that were suffering from all kinds of illnesses that weren't being addressed because of language barriers, right? So you have a population that's 90 plus percent Latino and a population of prison officers and staff that's 100% Caucasian, right? The language barrier is one of the most disgusting detention centers because of the simple fact that if you can't speak English, then you can't relate your problems. And even when you try to relate your problems, you're minimized and you're just marginalized as an immigrant. You don't deserve health care. You don't deserve mental health care, right? Um, and so you have COVID 19's here. People are dying from COVID 19. We're not at a global pandemic by accident, right? Yet ICE refuses to follow federal judges' orders and review people who are at risk for dying if they catch COVID. Um, Heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes. I've seen all these kinds of people who would ask repeatedly to be released, um, and there's no accountability. It's the requests aren't answered, and if they are answered, it's just a simple your case officer's reviewing it. But how long does it take to be reviewed? Like it's clear that people are dying. So it's as if the Department of Homeland Security and ICE would rather see you die, right, in detention than release you um, with the understanding of you're going to come to court, right? So no matter if you have all the requests that they ask for, somebody that guarantees you're going to show up for court, family support, economic support, you're still not going to be released. Um, I a personal my personal testimony is that you know I have mental health problems. Um, and instead of ICE using their awesome discretion that Congress has bestowed upon them to release me, they decided to involuntarily commit me to a psychiatric hospital without any due process of law. They just threw me in the hospital and attempted to, in essence, chemically castrate me so that I couldn't think. Um, these are just a few examples of the ongoing practices that exist within detention, within ICE. So like who who wants to be controlled? Whose daily life wants to be controlled in detention? Nobody's. We're human beings. We weren't designed to be placed in cages. And so in that design of detention, right? There has to be scientific literature out there that speaks to the fact that the reason why so many people don't fight to stay in the United States is because of the atrocious conditions of confinement in detention. But that's not by accident, that's by design. The harder we make it on them, the easier the faster they'll sign their rights away and be deported. That should not be the system. That should not be the end goal. The end goal is to have a just system, and a just system entails human conditions. If detention is even needed, right? So a lot of the times people have already paid their debt to society. Right? So when we're talking about our to society has been paid, and then we have to pay a tax on top of that debt to society. That doesn't sound right, right?
Yeah,
Um,
that's definitely not right, Arnold. And that's definitely something that should not be happening. And we want to thank you so much for sharing with us your experience and your remarks. And we fully agree with you, right? No human being belongs in a cage. No human being should be put through what you have been put through, right? I think that your case and Beto's case, our goal with highlighting cases and our members and their fight and their struggle is to ensure that the way that we're looking at how we attack the immigration issue and how we go about it is recognizing the different intersection that that system in and of itself holds, right? For Beto's case, there was direct collaboration between the criminal system and the immigration system, right? Something that is super clear that I think in recent years we've all learned to recognize and acknowledge, and we need to continue to do that and voice that, right? And then with Arnold's case, we hear a lot about this pipeline, right? The foster care to prison pipeline, right? And then there's the obvious prison to ICE enforcement pipeline, right? And those are things that we cannot forget, right? That these systems criminalize our folks. That these systems, as Arnold put it, right, trained our folks in different ways, right, and pass our folks along through these different institutions. And that's something that we cannot forget and ignore, right? So when we're talking about abolishing ICE, when we're talking about what do we do to ensure that our communities aren't criminalized, right? We can't just say abolish ICE and assume that all our issues are going to be over, right? We need to look at the different webs and connections that ICE has. Once again, like the foster system, like the criminal system. We've also heard about the school to prison pipeline, right? And so these are all places, and these are all things that are interconnected, that ensure that our people end up in cages, unfortunately, right? And in these types of situations. So, with that, we want to make sure that before going into some Q&A, I already see that we have a few questions, right? Please feel free to ask questions of us, ask questions of Arnold, and we can try to answer them to the best of our ability. But wanted to make sure that we drive the points very clearly, right? Not only for our community, but also for elected officials, and especially the Biden administration. We need to ensure that our people come back, right? That there's a way in which our people are able to return, especially in cases like Beto's, right? Where his removal from the US was a direct result of Trump being in office and the retaliatory measures that his administration took against organizers and activists who are undocumented, right? We need to make sure that, as much as Biden ran on this, I'm going to address the harms that happened under the Trump administration, that is something that actually happens, right? And that we do not let Biden forget that commitment, and that it's important to address those harms as a form of accountability, right? We need to also make sure, right, that we remind Biden that we're not supposed to be having these removals in the first place, right, and that they are supposed to be routinely checking for cases, reviewing cases, right, and granting stays and things like that. That's another big push that we need to make, right, that could have helped cases. Such as Arnold's and Beto's. The other thing that I want to bring up that I think kind of addresses a question that we had. I don't see it anymore. Oh, okay, yeah. So it was kind of answered around like what the new Biden bill looks like, right? And I think that the question around what we do with people's convictions and charges is super important, right? And super critical. The reason why I mentioned that is because for Arnold's case in particular, right? Once again, he finds himself already removed from the country in Colombia, and that doesn't mean that the fight is over, right? Arnold was pushed to make a really difficult decision to leave the country, right? Given the different experiences that he faced in detention. And one of the things that we are trying to do, and that I think that we should push for more and explore more, right, is the opportunity to have folks granted pardons, right, for their convictions in the past. For example, in a case like Arnold's, right, being able to ensure that we get a pardon from the governor of Illinois, Governor Pritzker, would ensure that he is able to reopen his removal proceedings, right, and be able to come back. So once again, figuring out how, just as much as those systems are connected, we're making those connections and we're addressing people's cases in different forms, right? The erasing of convictions, and I'm not an attorney, so if anybody kind of like has any flags with that, but like the expungement of convictions, the erasing of convictions and things like that sometimes isn't the most helpful thing that can happen for someone with an immigration case, right? And the reason for that is because the conviction, even though it is expunged, right, it doesn't actually disappear for purposes of immigration, right? It still does show up. And so we need to explore other ways and other avenues to make sure that our people are given pardons, those who have had contact with the criminal system, such as Arnold's, to be able to bring our folks back. The other thing that I wanted to make sure that we flag that would directly impact cases such as Arnold and Beto's, right, is supporting immigration laws that are currently being proposed or that have been introduced that actually deal directly with the criminalization issue, right, and the connections between our criminal system and our immigration system. The one that we have been supported of, and that we think you should look into if you haven't, and make sure that you're calling your elected officials and letting them know that you support this, right, is the New Way Forward bill, right? So the New Way Forward bill is a bill that was introduced by Chuy Garcia here from Illinois. And that directly addresses the 1996 laws, right, that essentially marry the criminal system with the immigration system, right? So once again, doing away with that connection is a really good way for us to move towards, what does actually abolishing these systems, right, look like? And yeah, so those are definitely some of the recommendations, that we are making that we think are relevant to cases like Arnold, cases like Beto, and other members, the OCAD. And what you can do is one of the questions that was asked. Once again, calling your elected officials, making sure that they know about this, staying tuned to the OCAD Instagram, the OCAD Facebook, the OCAD webpage, because we will soon be having calls to action items for both Arnold's case and Beto's case. Once again, we're really fighting hard together to make sure that we have our people back, right? And that we're able to be reunited, that people don't, sending the message that, once again, just because they're out of the country, it doesn't mean that the fight is over, and that our people are very much not disposable, right? That we need our people back here. So I have definitely just said a lot. And I have not looked if there are any questions. But yes, please feel free to take this time to ask any questions or any remarks.
Hey, Ariana, I just want to answer one of the questions. It was how can visual artists get involved in support of the work? You can highlight, your work with these stories, right? And of course, with the guidance of the people that it's doing the grassroots work. We also sometimes we need designing graphics, visuals, flyers, banners, and that's a way that you can plug in. Please follow us in OCAD, and that's how we can plug in with your visuals and art. And before we still doing the questions and answers?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there are any questions or remarks for anyone that is on here. Okay, I saw one. How can attorneys help? This is, sorry, I started answering and then muted myself. Thank you so much for this question. I think that the work of attorneys is really important in cases like this. And I saw that Arnold was going off of mute. Arnold, did you have an answer for that? Okay, maybe not. Definitely being able to just support with the cases is huge, right? As we all know, and as Commissioner Anaya kind of mentioned, right? We know that representation for our folks is very limited, right? Our folks don't actually have access to that representation. So, you know, that's one thing that can happen, right? Supporting with representation of removal cases. The other thing is making sure that you are able to, you know, talk to your other attorney friends, right? And make it definitely more acceptable for folks to, for attorneys to become movement attorneys, right? And be able to think outside the box, not only in terms of individual cases, but of other things that we can be doing, right? Such as litigation or policy work, right? That, you know, ensure that we're addressing the criminalization of our community and the detention of our community. I think those are two very big things, right? I don't know if anybody else has like another.
And I'd like to chime in as well. I think this is a very important question because attorneys can get involved in so many ways, right? I think we all have the power to, you know, advocate, but it's so much more powerful to have attorneys and representations in courts. But I would even say even further than that is attorneys are part of associations, right? There's different attorney associations, and bringing up the issue at all of the associations and the different bars is extremely important because a collective push is something that is really needed when we're talking about legislation. If there are opportunities for the different bars to make a statement or to write something in regards to a bill and to really have a united front and to show support, it just solidifies the fact that, that there are people that are looking at this, people that are trained, people that understand the law, and people that are willing to continue to push. Obviously, it just marries the whole advocacy, right, with people on the ground, with organizations that are doing the very, very important work and that are doing it day in and day out, and with the people that are willing to uplift their stories, and obviously with others that are trying to push policy through. So it really just like, again, marries the whole effort and it really has a united front. So I would say that that would be the addition that I would say, like how do you get others involved, others in the different bars and again, different attorney friends, people that are interested in the work and are interested in like human rights overall. So I think that that's important to know.
Thank you so much for that. The other question that I think we have is around bonds and if we've had any success with bonds. So, you know, I think like it really does depend on case by case, right? Whether you will be bond eligible, right? If you have never been ordered removed, you know, then you would be able to you know, request bond with the judge, you know, depending once again on what exists in your criminal background, right? Definitely defines that a lot. You know, on our end, what we see really does work when we are pushing for get our people bonded out and to get our people out is not only once again having the support of an attorney, right? Help us prepare a really good packet and argument to make sure that our people have the best chance when they're requesting bond, right? But also making sure that we are applying community pressure, right? And showing that this person has a strong community that is backing them up and supporting them, right? And that's very much the case with a lot of our cases and when we're making these asks of immigration, right? Showing that our community is strong, showing, you know, once again that the individuals that find themselves in these situations have a strong community backing, right? Is definitely something that's super helpful, that public campaign aspect of the work. But yeah, if you do have you know, any other questions, or if you are looking for support in individual cases, please definitely feel free to message us on, on Instagram, on Facebook. You can also message us through our website. And, we can definitely share more in detail about our experiences with different cases and requesting bond. I don't know if there are any other questions. If not, then before closing, I want to pass it on to Fernanda, who's going to give us a little bit of an update, non-update. And yeah, so take it away, Fed.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming to this forum, but I do want to mention that today, officially, we invited Secretary Mayorkas to attend to one of our national forums that we're going to have in the next weeks. So we have a petition. Please sign the petition where we want to bring Secretary Mayorkas to the national forum so he can listen to the testimonies. We're documenting all of these forums to see what he's going to change, what he has done in these first 100 days. So please, we encourage you to sign the petition, share it with your friends, sign up for other forums. We have a bunch of forums coming up. So please check Mi Gente Facebook, Instagram, and the We Are Home homepage. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you again. And yes, please make sure that you go and sign the petition, right? If the Biden administration is going to be serious about accountability and about addressing a lot of these issues, then we need to have these meetings established, right? And we need to have these folks listen to us. Because at the end of the day, we're the ones that know what needs to happen the best, right? And the direction that these things need to take. So please go ahead and sign that petition. And once again, follow Mi Gente, follow OCAD on the webs, and make sure that you're keeping up to date for any future calls to action. And yeah. With that, I don't think I think I see a lot of remarks, but no more questions unless I'm missing anything. Okay, but if so, then thank you once again, everyone, for joining us. Thank you to Commissioner Anaya for joining us as well, and for everyone who made this panel possible and accessible for us. Thank you once again, Beto and Arnold, for being able to share your stories and your struggles with us. And yeah. Thank you so much. Have a good night. And we will definitely keep in touch.